Graduate school is a whole new level of academic intensity. If you thought you could get by using the same study habits from high school or even undergrad, think again. But don't worry, because today I'm breaking down the exact strategies that will not only help you manage, but it sounds so cheesy, but like thrive in grad school without losing your mind. Here is what we're going to cover in this video. The 2 essential study strategies that every student, no matter your grade, even if you're not in graduate school, needs to know. 5 study tips specifically tailored to graduate students designed to help you manage your time, tackle assignments, and stay ahead of your courses. And then some bonus time management advice to tie it all together. Stick around because these tips just might change it all. Hi, I'm Katie Azevedo of schoolhabits.com. I'm a private study skills and executive function coach who teaches students and professionals strategies to learn and work smarter. And that is also the name of my podcast, if you want to check that out, which obviously you should. Okay, so study principles for students in graduate school are fundamentally the same as study principles for students in high school or undergrad, okay? And that's because the cognitive process involved in learning is the same, no matter what grade or year you're in, like the brain operates the same. But if you are in grad school, you can benefit from changing up your study systems, routines, and habits in a way that are better suited to graduate level expectations. All right, so there are 2 foundational study tips, or as I said, principles, for all students, okay? Not just for those in graduate school. Every additional study strategy that you want to throw in the mix, be my guest, should be an offshoot of one of the following 2. Okay, and yes, if you've been around any of my videos, my blog, my podcast before, you have heard me talk about these a lot. Number 1, active recall. Active recall is the singular most effective study strategy there is. It's the process of giving yourself multiple opportunities to struggle to recall information that you're learning, all without looking at your notes. It sounds simple, but can actually be quite physically uncomfortable sometimes. This is stuff like making and using your own flashcards, taking practice quizzes, filling in diagrams, solving practice questions, things like that. Again, without looking at any resources. No quick peeks over on the flashcard to be like, oh, did I know that? No, you didn't know it. If you flip the flashcard over, you didn't know it. Okay, that's why it can get uncomfortable. I teach the ultimate active recall study strategy inside School Habits University, which this is obviously your sign to enroll already. Number 2, spaced repetition. So spaced repetition is the ultimate framework for mapping out your study sessions for the best learning and retention. I mean, it's really pretty pointless to learn something if you only forget it the next day. That's just memorization and it's super temporary. Spaced repetition is what's required if you want to go from that temporary memorization to full-on stick in your brain learning, okay? Spaced repetition involves studying in short, frequent intervals over an extended period of time rather than studying in one chunky study session. Cognitive science validates spaced repetition. So I am not just sitting here just spewing opinions. Okay. All right. So those are the 2 foundational study principles that any student watching this video needs to base all of their study methods on. Flipping through your notes, rereading a textbook, flipping through some digital flashcards that your teacher made that feel really convenient, but they're actually super useless. None of that counts as studying. All right, now though, we are ready to move on to the 5 study tips that, although any student can use them, are optimized for someone in a graduate program. So if you are a grad student, full-time or part-time, the following 5 study tips should help you maximize your time and prevent you from falling behind in your courses. If there's one thing about grad school that's different from undergrad, it's that things move super fast and no one waits for you to catch up. And no one cares if you don't. You either do or you don't, right? But that's on you. Tip number 1, prepare for class and use priming. Unlike high school where you can essentially just show up for class and expect to be taught, graduate school is different because the expectation is that you're going to do a lot of the learning on your own. You're expected to read, to do homework, to do your problem sets, to study and to figure things out by yourself and then to come to class with your questions. And if you don't prepare for class by doing the readings ahead of time, then you're going to fall behind. And catching up in grad school is not the same as catching up in high school or undergrad. So look at everything that your professor posts on your learning management system. Use your syllabus to figure out what readings you need to do before the next class, and then do them. In graduate school, no one checks if you do the reading. You don't get a homework point for doing the reading because there's no way for the teacher, to know if you did them or not, other than how you do on the assessments and the assignments, which is, kind of obviously a big deal. So if you got through high school and maybe even a little bit of undergrad without doing most of your readings because you could get away with it, that's not going to fly in grad school. Also, graduate level classes are dense, and if you don't do your readings, the lectures themselves aren't going to make any sense. Like, you're going to sit there and not have any idea what is going on. Doing your assigned readings prepares you to learn what the teacher's going to be talking about in the class. I have a video explicitly teaching priming strategies for college students. I'm going to link that in the description box. That is going to give you a more comprehensive understanding of what priming is, how it works, and of course, how to do it. That'll be linked below. It's actually important. But here's the deal real fast. When you prepare for a class, you automatically tap into the magic power of priming. And priming, just definitions here, is when you are exposed to material a little bit prior to really learning it. It's kind of like, I've used this analogy before in the priming video, but it's kind of like painting a wall. Priming a wall before you paint it, the primer gives the paint something to stick to, right? And learning works the same way. Exposure to content before you fully dive into it gives the new material something to stick to, so to speak. All right, study tip number 2, follow the syllabus to a T. The syllabus is king or queen in graduate school. Very rarely does a grad school professor vary from what is on the syllabus. And this is gold when it comes to planning out your time on a semester and on a weekly level. The idea is that you want to take the information that's in your syllabus and put it either into your calendar if it's a due date or a deadline, or into your task management system if it's an assignment. Now, how do we do this? Sit down with your syllabus, your calendar, and your task management tool, which is probably going to be your assignment notebook. Start by putting all of your deadlines and test dates on the calendar, and you would do this for each of your classes. Next, you look at your assignments and your readings, and depending on how long or complex they are, add them to your assignment notebook as tasks at least several days leading up to the ultimate deadline. You can do this 1 week at a time if you want. Graduate school assignments are often long-term projects or large chunks of reading. Take these big assignments and break them into smaller, more manageable steps. For example, if you have a research paper due in 6 weeks, block out time for finding your sources, creating an outline, and writing the various parts of it on the days leading up to the deadline. If you have 100 pages to read by a certain date, look at your calendar and figure out 5 different days where you could get through 20 pages of reading at a time. Third, make sure you have all the materials in your preferred format to do your assignments for the class. If you like to annotate directly in textbooks, buy your own copy instead of borrowing or renting one. If you prefer digital textbooks to analog textbooks, okay, because you like to do the Control F to find things and search or whatever, then see how you can make that happen. And then finally, do a weekly review of your assignments and due dates to monitor for changes. Although professors almost always stick to the syllabus, I'm going back on my word here, but sometimes things change, and they can change anytime, right? New deadlines can be posted, new assignments can be posted, deadlines can be moved forward or backward, and you want to be alert for these changes and update your calendar and your task management system when they happen. So the idea is that you're setting up your calendar for the semester, but you're checking in every week and finding time in your schedule every week to work on the assignments that you pulled from your syllabus and put on your calendar. Does that make sense? Tip number 3, do your work right after class. This might be one of the most helpful study tips for students in graduate school. So I am recommending that you do your homework right after class, or as immediately as you can after class, instead of waiting a few days to get started. Obviously, if you're working while going to grad school or you have a family to care for, you're going to need to work around your own schedule and obligation. But if possible, plan time in your week to do your homework and your readings either the same day you had class, or I'd say at the most, no more than 2 days later. The reason for this comes back to spaced repetition, which I talked about in the first section. If you do your homework pretty soon after class, you're naturally building in another spaced repetition session into the day. So the class counts as one learning session, and your homework session counts as another because there's usually time right in between there. The back-to-back reinforcement of the material will help you learn it more deeply and more permanently. Okay, I also have a few tips for how to make that work in real life. So let's get through them. Number 1, pre-block your schedule. When you plan out your semester, which we just talked about in the tip about following your syllabus, set aside specific time slots right after class or later that same day for study or work sessions. Anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes is probably a good time frame. And you treat this time like a non-negotiable commitment, like attending the class itself. Number 2, focus on clarifying concepts and enhancing your notes. You would use this time to identify and resolve any areas of confusion while the material is still fresh in your mind. If something didn't make sense during class, you can address it in your homework or flag it for a follow-up with your professor. Look at the notes you took during class. Check for missing information and gaps in your understanding. You can rewrite your notes, you can type them up if you want. Either way, the idea is to enhance them so that they're a better version of what you wrote down in class. Number 3, do your actual assignments. Simple. If something was assigned in class, get started on it. If you're working toward the next assignment on your syllabus, like it's a large essay or a research paper, then you just make progress on it. The information is fresh in your head, so it's a great time to bang out when you need to bang out. Okay, tip number 4, break down long-term projects. I already alluded to the study tip when I talked about using your syllabus to plan out your semester and your weeks, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper here. Most assignments in graduate school are technically long-term projects, right? You're not going to class every single day. So you're being assigned readings that are gonna, that are more extensive than if you had class every single day, like in high school. And because of that, because of these really spaced out deadlines, you're gonna need some ninja level task and time management strategies to make sure that you're completing the long-term projects over time and not procrastinating. And the best way to do this is to break down all of your readings and projects into smaller steps and then schedule those steps into your task and time management system. So your assignment notebook and your calendar. Every single strategy that I talk about in these videos, I go into so much more detail inside School Habits University. I teach you exactly how to take different types of long-term projects and splice and dice them so they become manageable. I show you how to find time for them and put them on your calendar in a way that's not overwhelming and way less dramatic than probably what you've been doing. So as much as I'm teaching you here, there's only so deep I can go in a YouTube video. If you're listening to me explain these strategies and you're feeling like, wait, but I want to know more about how to actually do that, that's all inside the course. This is your sign to enroll. All right, last tip, tip 5, review regularly. This tip is powerful because if done consistently, it can significantly reduce the amount of time that you need to study overall, which if you ask me, is the jackpot goal, right? Graduate classes are often spaced out over the week. We talked about this with each course, usually maybe, meeting once a week, twice a week. This means that during a semester, you're not actually meeting face-to-face with your professor that many times, as compared to high school class where you're, meeting 5 days a week and you're seeing your professor every day. You follow me? All right, so what does this mean? It means that you're gonna need to dedicate a significant amount of out-of-class time to reviewing material on your own so you don't forget it by the time you need it, or for your final or for your next test. Graduate level classes move fast, and it's common to move from one subject to the next without returning to material from the last class. That's essentially on you, the grad student. Now, one good strategy to make sure that you're reviewing the material regularly enough to, not forget it is to make an ongoing set of flashcards throughout the semester. This doesn't work for every single type of content, I get it, but for more things than you probably think, flashcards can work. Every single time you cover new material in class or in your readings, make a flashcard with it. And eventually you'll build up this deck of cards that will eventually become very substantial. And when the test comes, you're gonna find that you actually have to study way less, again, the entire point, because the material is fresh in your mind, because you've been looking at it all of the time. And you don't have to spend a lot of time making your study resources because you already have them. So you're taking notes in class, right? And after class, I'm advising that you do your assignments or review your notes. Maybe at that point is when you pull important information from your notes and you put it on a flashcard. right? People do this. If you're like, Katie, people, yes, they do. Yes, they do. So many of the top level strategies that top performing students do, they're not talking about. They're not, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing here. Anyway, okay. I said I would finish the video with time management advice. So here it is. No amount of study tips are going to save you from bad time management. That is because good time management skills are the foundation for everything else. Spaced repetition, completing your assignments, and staying on top of your workload all depend on it. So here's how to make time management work for you in grad school. Number 1, be realistic about how long tasks take. One of the biggest time management mistakes is underestimating how much time you really need. Reading intensive courses in particular can be deceiving. What looks like just 20 pages could take, 2 hours if the material is dense or complex. Track how long tasks take you for a week or 2 to get an accurate sense of your timing and your pace on certain types of assignments. Tip 2, use a weekly planning session. At the start of every week, it can be helpful to set aside 15 to 30 minutes, nothing bananas here, to plan out your tasks and study sessions. This is your chance to prioritize, to identify deadlines, and map out when you plan to tackle each assignment. Treat this, time like a meeting with yourself. It's non-negotiable. It's essential. Romanticize it with a cup of coffee and a dim light vibe if you need to. That's what I would do. Number 3, schedule both hard and soft deadlines. For major assignments, it can be helpful to set 2 deadlines. A soft deadline, a few days before the actual due date to complete the work. Okay, and the hard deadline is for your final edits and for your final submission. If you have ADHD, giving yourself this sort of like pseudo deadline can be helpful. It's the equivalent of setting like 5 alarms in the morning, right? This buffer gives you time to review your work without last minute panic, right? You'd put both deadlines into your task management system and into your calendar. Number 4, alternate between heavy and light assignments. Some assignments are going to be harder than others because, they're bigger assignments or maybe because the content is more challenging. If you are tackling a to-do list of, let's say, 5 different assignments, it can be helpful to alternate between the heavier assignments like reading and writing and research and lighter assignments like maybe, a worksheet or another activity that you don't find that difficult. Only you can judge what's difficult, right? This can help you sustain your motivation and attention as you move through your list. So you'd work for a little bit on a hard task, then you switch before giving up altogether or just like walking away from it all, then you switch to a lower cognitively demanding task, and then you switch back to the higher one. It can kind of like help you sustain your energy. All right, tip 5, know when to say no. Grad school can feel like a constant balancing act and you can't say yes to everything. Protect your time by being selective about extracurricular commitments and social obligations. Grad school is different from undergrad, and your primary goal is to your courses and your curriculum, not necessarily to joining every club or attending every campus event. If that's your thing and you can do all these extracurriculars without, going bonkers, that's awesome. I'm just saying that many of my graduate students feel guilty about not taking advantage of all their university has to offer, and I'm just here to say that this isn't the season for guilt. Okay? My friends, before you go, a quick favor to ask. If you like this video, could you please give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I read them all, and it's just me who replies on the back end. As always, I appreciate you. I'm grateful for your support, and thank you so much for watching.